significant underinvestment in gold exploration over the last decade that's going to drive a lot of the producers to play catch up. And we've started to see that now in the last few months with a number of very high profile acquisitions, which is, as a gold junior equity investor, your ultimate goal, where you have a project, you make a discovery, you build some upside expectation, and then you get acquired.
Thank you, everyone, for joining another episode of Inside the Markets Extra. We are more than honored to be sitting down today with David D'Onofrio, the CEO of White Gold Corp. Thank you so much, David, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So 2021 in the equities market, what have we seen?
It's been actually a very interesting year. There's obviously the broad equity market, and then there's sort of, the gold market and the junior gold market, which are all kind of relevant and play hand in hand. I think everyone's aware the equity markets have generally done very well since the pandemic began, and there was kind of that micro crash up until maybe the last couple of weeks where we're starting to see a risk-off sentiment again related primarily to some of this pandemic, I think, news. And part of that, and what you're hearing in all the headlines now, is inflation. I think the cost of everything's gone up. Now, what's interesting to me and a lot of people is gold is supposed to be the safe haven investment to protect against inflation. And gold is likely one of the only commodities that hasn't seen its price go up in the last year. Now, what I think, and others as well, is that could lead to a very interesting setup for the gold price. But more importantly, I think the opportunity could be in the gold equities. Gold has roughly stayed flat this year, but the equities, and particularly the junior gold equities, have seen a significant decline. So that's a big disconnect. And anytime you have a disconnect, there's usually a reversion to the norm. So I think in this scenario, we'd have that to look forward to, if nothing else. But I do believe there's been a significant underinvestment in gold exploration over the last decade that's going to drive a lot of the producers to play catch up. And we've started to see that now in the last few months with a number of very high profile acquisitions, which is, as a gold junior equity investor, your ultimate goal, where you have a project, you make a discovery, you build some upside expectation, and then you get acquired.
How do you see this playing out in 2022 for gold exploration businesses?
So what I think we have pent up demand in the M&A side, right? A couple things that have really pent up that demand. Listen, gold, maybe it's not the most exciting sector for a lot of people. They're looking at tech, Tesla, some of these battery metals, etc. But if we take a step back, gold's at $1,800 here, plus or minus. If you would have told someone 2.5 years ago that gold would be at $1,800, or someone in the gold industry, they would be doing backflips. So the majors here, that's a real price. Their commodity that they're selling has gone up significantly. So these guys are now starting to make money like they've never made before. What they're going to want to use that for is to short their balance sheet and to grow. Now, how do they grow? They grow by either expanding their own deposits, which takes a lot of time and a lot of capital, or through acquisition. That's always been the model. Now, with the pandemic, particularly the first year, travel was almost entirely eliminated, right? When you have different projects, you got to get your technical people out there. They got to look at it. They have to do their due diligence. None of that happened. So even in a boring time in a commodity cycle, there is a certain amount of M&A that will happen. None of that happened. So you have that backlog, which is starting to kick in now. But I think what you really have is you have these producers that are finally, doing really well financially, but they've had this underinvestment in exploration that I mentioned. These guys are a business. They need to ensure that they can continue to produce gold at certain levels to support the value of their company. And if they don't have a pipeline, they need to see their next 5 or 10 years forward of where this gold is going to come from. If they don't have that, that's a problem. And these guys now at a point where their pipelines are deficient to show that type of prospectivity, and they're going to need to go out and make these acquisitions. And now, you saw it, Kinross playing, almost $2 billion for Great Bear. That's a very exciting project in Canada. actually not too far away from the White Gold project. So I think companies that have defined deposits in good jurisdictions will become a very hot commodity going forward, because these guys need to make these acquisitions, and they're going to start to want to look in the best possible places to do that. In jurisdictions with great regulatory regimes like Canada, like the US, different parts of Australia and other countries, those are going to be the first places people will go, and those are where you're going to get the premium prices. So as an investor, I think that's the type of activity or areas you want to be invested in. It's been overlooked for the last little while, and that's why I think you're going to get a re-rating with a big multiple upside opportunity when the activity starts. Because every time there's an acquisition, that's one less asset out there that can be acquired. So when you're sort of at 1.5 million, 2 million ounces and above, those are going to be prime candidates for acquisition.
Tell us about what has happened at White Gold Corp in 2021 and what you expect out of 2022.
We've had a great year. We were really busy this year. We were able to carry out a very sort of impactful exploration program. White Gold's a bit of a unique animal in that we have some defined deposits, so there's some real value in there. We're at about 1.8 million ounces now across all categories in our flagship deposits. However, we have a very exciting exploration portfolio, and as junior gold investors, people, a lot of them look for the exploration because that's your lottery ticket, right? You never know what you're going to hit. That can be a new discovery. That can lead to a lot of fanfare. But if it doesn't work, you can have nothing. Now, White Gold has 1 million acres. We're probably one of the companies out there with the largest land package. We own an entire district in the Klondike area of the Yukon. This is where they had the big placer gold rush 100 years ago. And since that time, there's been 20 million ounces of gold found on surface. We have the benefit of having now defined these 1.8 million ounces on our properties. We think that asset base can grow, and now is at a point where it's going to be in the crosshairs of, I think, of a lot of potential different parties. We have what's also very unique, we have 2 major mining companies as our major shareholders, so that they've really kind of helped us advance these projects. Obviously, they are candidates for people needing more ounces, and we know sort of what they would look for. There's also other parties that kind of would be interested in that. So what we've done last year, we were really successful in discovering a new, what looks like it could be a new deposit very close to our flagship deposit called the Ryan Surprise. We've now traced high-grade mineralization over a footprint of 400 meters by 400 meters by 450 meters deep, and discovered another new zone called the Yuli's Ridge, which is directly contiguous to that. So we think that could, greatly increase the size of our deposit. So we're really excited about the prospectivity there. And what else we've done, in terms of what we kind of had a two-pronged approach. Let's keep sort of working on the meat and potatoes type stuff, where that's your sleep at night value in your company. Unfortunately, with all of this going on, we're very, much undervalued for everything we have. But that's our job, to get out there and show people why this is a great time to maybe be investing in this company from a risk reward standpoint. I think it's one of the best out there. But on the discovery side, we made a major world-class discovery that we just announced a couple of weeks ago. We drilled a hole of 50 meters of 3.5 grams gold. That sort of tenor is one of the best ever drilled in the Yukon, and one of the highlights across Canada, in fact. And those types of holes are have lead to high probabilities of putting out a deposit around it. That was on a target of ours called the Betty. It's contiguous to Newmont. They have a multi-million ounce deposit there, which our team actually discovered and was acquired for $500 million. First time ever being diamond drilled. We were blown away by the results. We have a number of other targets on there, so we are now fully financed to go out and do some more work on that. Our partner Agnico just topped up their investment in the company. I think they share our vision. So very thrilled with what happened, and just kind of chomping at the bit here now to get back out there in 2022.
Any further comments on that latest announcement?
These things, as I've been in this business for a long time, I've had the good fortune of working with some great teams and some great assets. Those type of results are few and far between. Sometimes you can get some high grades over a narrow intercept. That's a very different animal. But to get that type of gold grade over a consistent intercept of 50 meters long is pretty remarkable. And there's some studies out there that sort of show, like I mentioned, that these types of holes usually aren't in isolation. So they're, the prospectivity, have a lot of gold around that, is very high. We're like thoroughly excited about that. And then we have these other targets which are along that. So this is property, like I mentioned, contiguous to Newmont. We have Western Copper. They have one of the largest porphyries in North America. That's only 14 kilometers away. This is really elephant country. We're right along the same fault as the Coffee deposit with 4 other untested targets. So to think that, in 2022, we will be the first people ever drilling that's in like a tier 1 jurisdiction like Canada, is almost unheard of. And the fact that we own the entire district, I think, is something that's, really special about White Gold. It's like being able to go back in time and, buy, 50% of Timmins or the Abitibi or the Nevada gold fields, right? Like, what would that be worth today? That would be worth billions. And I really think that's the kind of opportunity we're talking about in White Gold. Like, this is a generational type opportunity. We're scratching the surface. We've shown that there's a lot more gold there in the limited work that's been done. And, we couldn't be more excited about, the prospectivity of what we think lies ahead of us.
We've had the honor of sitting down today for this edition of Inside the Markets Extra with David D'Onofrio, the CEO of White Gold Corp. Thank you so much, David, for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Stay tuned. Hopefully we're up for an exciting ride here for ourselves and the rest of the gold equities market as all these factors converge here upon us in likely 2022.
And thank you everyone for listening to Inside the Markets Extra presented by stockpulse.com. Have a great day.